Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Center for Career Services at GW, we are delighted you could join us for this Facebook event with Bill. He is actually a Trachtenberg GW alumni. He got his MPA in 2010, and then he transitioned to a position at Deloitte, and now he's at Facebook. And we would just like to remind you that for today's session, we will be recording the event, and we will send out the recording shortly afterwards. We also recommend that attendees use headphones for the best sound quality. Our panelists will discuss a little bit about Facebook, and then we will have time for questions at the end. All attendees are intentionally muted, but there will be time, like I said, for questions at the end, so you can just drop those questions into the Q&A box. And at this time, we will turn it over to our panelist, Bill.
Hey, thank you, Rachel, and good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming. As Rachel said, my name's Bill Haughney. I am a software engineering recruiter for Facebook. I'm based out in Seattle, and I've been working here for about 5.5 years. To give you just a little rundown about who I am, so let me just kick off first by saying, you know, I'm going to do a little intro on myself, kind of tell you kind of how I got through this craziness of school and grad school and how that helped me get to where I am. And there's not going to be slides or a presentation. I've done a lot of that over the last year in my role as a university recruiter. And I can tell you that I know Zoom fatigue is real. And I know you all don't like being talked to as much. What I really want to do, I'll talk a little bit about just some general tips on recruiting in a virtual space, and I can chat a little bit about Facebook, but I really want you all to get to ask questions in that Q&A box, and for this to be a chance for me to answer what's on your mind. And so really that's what I hope we can do for most of this. I think you'd appreciate that more, and it'll be more productive for you as well. So that's really what my hope is from here. So I won't take too much time going through about me, but then you know, as questions come up, please type them in the box, and Rachel will bring them up to me, and I'll be happy to answer whatever's on your mind. So, yeah. So when I have a very non-traditional path to what I'm doing, and it was a lot of trial and error, to be honest. Some happy accidents along the way that kind of got me to where I am today. I went to Vanderbilt University for my undergrad. I grew up in Chicago. I had no idea really about what it would be like living in the South. I had been to Florida a couple times, but that had been about it. I got in to Vanderbilt. It was just in Nashville, and just went on a whim, went and checked it out and applied on a whim, kind of liked it. And for reasons I still can't honestly tell you, I think it was, if I recall, it was in a city, and I liked the urban environment like that, and it was a small school. That's why I chose it. And I got there, and it was just like a total culture shock to me. The South was very different than anything I experienced growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. But it turned out to be great. And that was kind of a happy accident number one, where I on a whim just picked a school and it worked out. And I loved it there, and I loved meeting people from all over and getting kind of experience different cultures within the U.S. and made friends from random places. Lived with somebody from Mississippi, which is its own unique experience, and that really helped kind of set the foundation for me wanting to explore my environments and get out and try things. And while I was there, I was a poli-sci and econ major, and I don't know if anyone's watching the show or you've seen it on repeats or whatever, but The West Wing was new, and it was just this amazing, like eye-opening experience for me about what you could do with government. And so I did a congressional internship, moved out to DC for a summer, did that, came back. The congressman that I interned for ended up becoming governor of my home state of Illinois, and I went and worked for his Washington, DC office. So graduated from school, went out there and moved back out to DC after, and started as a legislative assistant. That governor, is named Rod Blagojevich. You may have heard of him. He was impeached for trying to basically sell Barack Obama's Senate seat after he became president. He was impeached. He was incarcerated for that, and amazingly, he wasn't recently. He was given why can't I think of the word all of a sudden? I'm blanking here. President Trump gave him a pardon and let him out. So it's been quite a whirlwind for that. My birthday was recently, and my wife found Rod Blagojevich on Cameo, and I got a 5-minute cameo wishing me happy birthday, in which I swear to you, he it was like therapy for himself as he talked and thanked about the experience being in jail and thanking President Trump, and really didn't mention me or my birthday, but it was quite an experience. So I did that, and I really loved government, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I was being paid, living in Washington, D.C., but being paid a Springfield, Illinois wage, which is like next to nothing. It was really hard. And so I switched into a lobbying role. I moved into a lobbying shop and worked as their, what started out as their legislative assistant, and worked my way up into becoming a lobbyist over a few years. And during that time, it was really more of a way to earn money and try and just, survive the expensive place that is DC. And I didn't really love it. I was there for a few years, and we had good clients, and I was really proud of the work that I was doing. But at the end of the day, I was lobbying, asking for appropriations, things that just weren't that exciting. I had a few roommates who had gone to Trachtenberg, and I knew a lot about it. And I decided, I wanted to apply there and try and kind of move away from this lobbying phase. And I got in and went part-time as I was still going and working as a lobbyist, and spent 3 great years as getting my MPA there, working with some really amazing faculty and just great talented students who are doing wonderful things now in their lives, and got to learn from them and grow and really get a sense of what public administration meant. And so I got my MPA in 2010, and thanks to Trachtenberg and those people that I worked with, I was referred into Deloitte, and I worked as a human capital consultant. And I thought for sure consulting was what I wanted to do. That was like, I want to go work in, fix government this way. This is what I want to do. I don't like lobbying. And I went and did that for 3 years, and it was great. I mean, it really taught me a lot. It made me a better everything being a consultant. It was really helpful. But I didn't love it. I realized it turned out I kind of glamorized it more than I thought, than what it really was. And Deloitte makes you do, they call it firm activities. I think of it as forced fun. So you have to do some non-client work. Whether that's writing proposals or white papers, or you can help in recruiting. And so I was helping out with recruiting. That's what I decided to do. And I was recruiting at Trachtenberg, helping the recruiter out, and would do events. And I realized over those 3 years that my favorite thing I was doing at Deloitte was these recruiting events and coming and being part of it. And I don't know if anyone is a Trachtenberg student, but just to show you the help that career centers are for you there. Even though I was no longer a student, I was talking with the career director, Denise Riedman. I know she was out for a little on maternity leave. I think she just came back, but I was just chatting with her about, upcoming Deloitte recruiting stuff, and mentioned to her, like, hey, I'm thinking of switching. I don't know. It seems crazy to me. I have this master's degree, and maybe I want to be in recruiting. I don't know. And she gave me just like really helpful advice and told me just to follow my passion, and don't be afraid. If this is what I really like, don't be afraid that it's, there's still things that I will learn from Trachtenberg that will be important in a new role like this, even if it's not directly, involved in government or helping with that front. So it was really great advice, and it really helped me push to want to try and go into recruiting. And then happy accident number 2 was I just mentioned out to the recruiter I was working with, and she said, yeah, I'm about to leave to go set up Hilton's campus program, and I think you should take over for me. I think you'd be great at it. So I'm going to recommend you to my boss. And so she did. And most consultants who try and do what I did don't, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. I think I had a lot of people ask me who after I switched, want to do something similar. And what my boss kind of told me, my new boss, was that ultimately, it is not super glamorous. There's a lot of back end stuff. There's things that you don't realize. You have to put on events as a consultant, but you had all done that, so you knew it. And so that's why we kind of trusted you. And so that really was lucky for me, because I switched into recruiting, and I really loved it, and it was great. And I was the GW recruiter for the MBA and MPA schools, which was a lot of fun. Just an absolute great time getting to share opportunities with you all when I was at Deloitte for the federal practice, and did that for multiple schools. And then just another happy accident again, a person I worked with at Deloitte had moved out to Seattle to work at Amazon. He had switched over to Facebook, and we had stayed in touch, and he told me that they were looking to hire, and so was I interested? And for me, I'd lived in DC for almost 12 years, and the thought of we were I've been there 12 years. My wife had been there 9. We were kind of feeling it was maybe time to go. We've been there a long time. And we were wondering kind of what was next. And we decided to just take this risk and took the plunge and moved out to Seattle. And it's been 5.5 years. And here I am at Facebook and really enjoying it and what I'm doing. Switching into recruiting was truly the smartest thing I've done. I kind of went on, like, it wasn't just like a whim, but it was also, I had no idea exactly like what it would be career prospect wise. I mean, I'd done some research and talked to some people, and I knew I'd be, comfortable. I had the skills that I could be successful to do this job. And my MPA and those leadership courses really helped that. My consulting background helped that. But I hadn't really known what that was going to be like in the end. And so I decided to take the plunge and do it. And, here we are still, and I'm really enjoying it and what I'm doing, and love that I made this switch. And I wish I had found this out, this career path sooner, because I've spent a lot of time kind of spinning my wheels and not sure what I wanted, and ultimately, got here. But I look at all these things that also, and they all kind of helped get me to where I was, for sure. Not loving, loving West Wing got me into government, and not loving lobbying really drove me to want to get this MPA, and this MPA got me to Deloitte, and Deloitte got me to recruiting. At the end, Deloitte had to sign off on me switching. I was making the firm money, and I then asked instead, could I take your money and spend it on students? I needed their approval to do something like a switch like that, and they were really supportive of it. And that, that got me then to Facebook in the end. So each step, each little transition in life helped set up, the next one. And so I really do look back fondly at all that time and helping me grow and get to where I am now. And so that's kind of who I am and what I do. Now, like I said, at Facebook, I recruit for undergrads and master's students for software engineering. I recruited 2 schools. We're broken up in like a school region model. I have a couple schools. One is the University of Washington right down the road, and another is the University of Waterloo, which is in Ontario. And so those are my 2 schools I recruit from. And they take up a lot of my time and what I do. We for Facebook itself, I mean, primarily we are an engineering company, software engineering, front-end engineering, a lot of technical engineering in that regard. But we also have other roles outside of that. We're not just like, well, that's the bulk of where we hire. We have a lot of different roles as well. Product designers, program managers. We have hardware and infra roles. We try to build our own stuff, with the exception of the laptops and the phones. We build our servers and our data centers, and we build, the Oculus products. We build that, the portals, we build those. We do all that. So we do, we have those roles as well. We have business roles. We have, so we have, a whole group of people we hire outside of just traditional computer science students. While my focus is primarily that, we do have a massive recruiting team. It's about 400 of us, from recruiters to coordinators to PhD folks and leadership, and our programs team who puts our internship together. It's grown significantly since I started in 2015. And our roles have gotten more complex, and certainly added a lot of both technical, beyond CS, and then non-technical roles. So there are a lot of opportunities that are out there. We tend to be, one of the major differences I noticed when I switched over, when I was at Deloitte, the consulting industry really is, you do your full-time hiring in November or October, November. You do your intern hiring in January, February. It's just like one shot at it. And that's when you do it. Within the tech space, it's really like hiring throughout. So there's not just like one big batch of interviews and anything like that. We do interviews throughout the year, and so that starts in August and rolls through into the winter time. So Rachel, is there a question I saw pop up here?
Yes, we do have a question. Are there internships still open for this semester?
Yeah, and I think that segues nicely to what I'm saying here right now. Yeah, there are. We are still hiring. It kind of depends on what role you're looking for, but we are still hiring for things. Some of our smaller pipelines have filled up. So I know like our front-end engineering is no longer hiring, but like software engineering is. Some of the PM roles are still open. our data science things are closed now. They've finished their hiring, but a lot of teams are still going. And so it's just really a kind of question of what you are, what your interests are, and just to see if they're still going. So.
We have another question too. What, if any, are the typical assessments students may encounter if applying or interviewing with Facebook?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So again, some of it's all depending on a lot of roles. Like for example, software engineering, we do technical interviews, so coding interviews. For internships, it's just coding. For full time, we also add in a behavioral interview in there, and that's true. Like for our front end engineering as well. Our production engineering will have a systems focused interview in addition to a coding interview. Data science will be doing some data analysis in their interviews. Product design does a portfolio critique. So you would have a portfolio, and by the critique, they'd want to ask, like, what is it that, why'd you make this decision? Oh, tell us what you went through, kind of between were there other colors you were looking at or fonts or whatever. So you do it like that. Like the PM roles would be more leadership focused and behavioral interview focused. Tell me a time you dealt with a difficult teammate. What was the time you nearly missed a deadline? How did you, get through it? Or if you did miss it, like, how did you, prep the team and the folks who are going to receive whatever you were producing? How'd you get them prepared for it? Things like that. So a lot of different, it's going to depend on kind of what it is you're interviewing for, but along the way, they will be different for each one. Technical roles will be technical, and kind of the non-technical ones will be a little bit more behavioral, leadership focused.
How many university students does Facebook recruit every year? And are undergraduate students also considered for these internships at Facebook?
Yeah, so undergrads are considered for almost all of them. There are specific PhD only roles. It'll say that in the role, so you'll know if you see it. Usually it's in the position title, and if not, you can go and you look at the position, you can find it in the requirements. But undergrads, yeah, we hire lots of undergrads. So total numbers we hire, it's a gigantic amount. We have over 2,000 interns in software engineering alone for the whole year, and that's just and that's our largest piece, obviously, as I said before. But so you can imagine, I think it's something like 4,000 interns total. Full-time hiring is. We do a lot of hiring through intern conversions there, but again, you can imagine more students coming through the process there. So it's we've grown rapidly and massively in the 5.5 years I've been here, and it's continued. It's shooting at around 4,000 interns total right now. So globally.
We have a question here. I'm a political science and economics major. Are there any internship opportunities for students in these areas?
Unfortunately, those are a couple teams that don't do a lot of hiring for interns that way. There is no, we do have a public policy team. We have public policy roles, but they tend not to have internships. Occasionally, they'll post an externship, but it's rare. We actually don't have a specific recruiter who handles like poli-sci, law, things like that. There are business roles, so I shouldn't say no to economics. There are business roles for sure with our business recruiting, and a lot of undergrad students tend to have either an economics degree or a business administration degree or something like that. There are roles that are not just MBA focused in there. There are ones for undergrad, and so you can. It's called technically it's called community operations, and that's where you can find some of those roles. It tends to be split more MBA and then some undergrad. I think they like a little bit more on the MBA front, but there are some undergrad business roles that you can find that are out there. So.
And then we have another question. Are there any Facebook recruiters that recruit from GW that you could connect us with? Or what is the best recommendations you have for connecting with someone on the Facebook team that recruits for these positions?
Yeah, so most other, with the exception of software engineering, it's just there's usually just one or two recruiters, period, who handle a lot of these smaller roles. So there is a recruiter who handles the district, the DC, Maryland, Virginia, the DMV area. She's on maternity leave right now, and I'm not sure who the replacement is. There would be somebody. I think one of the easier ways is just to find me on LinkedIn if you want. You can see my name. I think it's spelled on the bottom in this little chat box. If not, you saw it in the title, but you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't know off the top of my head who has filled in for her right now. And so there is somebody though, like, for software specifically. Otherwise, then it kind of like depends on there. Other than software, like I said, everyone's got about one or two recruiters who manage pipelines then, across the whole country. And so they tend to take a more national focus. They don't have specific schools like I do. And so their roles, like they will host a couple of events, maybe like an event at a campus now and then, but they're really looking through like traditional, like sourcing, like through our website or going through LinkedIn or things like that. So advice I always give, well, first off, just in general, I'd definitely encourage you, if you see a position you like, to apply for it, and it's in our system. We have our internal recruiting tool that we like look for through applications. It is not done with software. We look through them ourselves, and so when you apply to our requisition, it applies. Gets sent to the recruiter, goes through it then, and so recruiters are going through that all the time for those roles. And so for non-software, for sure, I would tell you like that's a great place to start, even though it seems like I'll just get lost in this like massive, block of resumes. Like they are going through that every day. And so they go through tons and tons and tons of resumes there that spend a lot of their time doing that. So, and then on the software side, if you're interested in software recruiting, if you want to find me on LinkedIn and I can find out who our recruiting team now is like within software is like 50 some people. And so I don't know off the top of my head who's got, since I'm in Seattle, who's got some of our East Coast regions at this point. So we did have somebody. I knew that we had an intern person, but then we switched again. There's been some more reorgs within that space. So that's why I don't know who the new person is. I just know we had some more changes still.
And the next question we have is, what tips do you have for students on how to highlight their skill sets when they may not have a lot of work experience?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think like, I always like to let people know like this fear that like I need an internship to get an internship is not true at all. It would be a very self-defeating circle if you needed to find, have an internship on your resume already to get that first one. So what we're looking for is just overall, like we are trying to figure out from a 1 to 2 piece, sheets of paper, like do we see the skills that can help with the role that we're working on? So I think my first thing I would say to everybody is like, make sure you're tweaking your resume for the role. So like, and it doesn't need to be like super specific. Like if you're looking for a consulting role, like a strategy consulting role, and you apply to Booz and or to Deloitte and PwC, like you don't need to tailor it that specific to like the PwC culture or something like that versus Deloitte's. But like if you're also applying to be like a product manager at like a tech company, I'd make sure you have different resumes, right? That you're not sending like the consultant one at Deloitte to, the PM role at, if Microsoft had something. So, but in there, right, ask yourselves, like, I think what's important is like, show how the experiences you do have relate to the role. And so you can do that through classes. Like if you're looking at like PM stuff, right, whether you were managing teams or if you were involved in student organizations and were helping, leading stuff there, if you were an officer, if you were like a committee lead, things like that, right? If you do things like on the side, like if you're in a community service group and you're helping do stuff there, like you can relate to like how those experiences reach over. If you're into, like for me, when I look at software roles, and I know recruiters who do other like technical things, we want to see like, are you doing any side projects like app development, or are you involved in like startup kind of culture of some kind, right? Like things you can just do to learn and build on your resume. And that stuff is equivalent to like other roles too, right? Just how does your daily life, like what are you doing within your daily life to kind of build those skills? Stuff is applicable. And even if you have like part-time jobs at school, like what is it? Like, is it customer facing? You can have that in there, right? So if you're looking to be like a customer facing PM somewhere, or if you're looking to be a consultant, you can highlight these people skills that you have, right? So experiences do translate over. And I would just say, like, as you have your resume, ask yourself, like, what is the role that I'm applying for? Like, now let me compare kind of like what my experiences are in there and translate that over. And that's kind of my tip on that. The other thing too is like, I think make sure you're really talking about that when you have a resume, kind of like the how you did things in that resume. So whether that's like, if it's CS related, like programming language, if it's like you built like, if you put proposals together, like how you built your framework, just the how you did things, right? And just kind of the results of those things too, right? It can be quantitative, it can be qualitative, but just kind of letting us know like what was the result of it. And it really helps us get a feel for like what you're doing and how you can go about really connecting to the role that we have out there. Because again, like the next phase then will be hopefully you'd be selected for an interview, and then you can continue to share your experiences through that way, right? But the initial like first step is like, that 1 to 2 pages showing us like, yeah, we should bring them. We think they like have the skills that are similar to our role. Let's dig deeper and find out. So.
Can you talk a little bit to how Facebook handles recruiting for international students?
Yeah, so first we sponsor for visas, and so if you're an international student in the U.S., we sponsor. So, that's something that you wouldn't need to worry about if you were to get the role. We connect you then with our legal immigration law firm who gets everything set up for you there. So we sponsor whether it's F visas or J visas for internships to H-1Bs or for those in the technical fields like the OPT with the STEM OPT, and then there's the STEM extension you can get out of it. So we have all these different things that we sponsor and are part of, and we have law firms that help with that. We have offices and roles that are outside of the U.S. Primarily for we have engineering spaces in London, Tel Aviv, and Singapore. We have business offices in other places like in Ireland, in Paris, in Dubai. We have sales offices spread out throughout the world. And so there's also then in business development and opportunities there too. Engineering, the main spaces are in the US, and then the 3 that I mentioned outside of it. And so, yeah, so there are opportunities to work internationally as well. There are certain countries have certain laws. So like within Singapore, like they need a certain number of folks who interview or hire need to be of Singapore, from Singapore, and so we have to work within those laws. And so not all roles are necessarily available as frequently, but the opportunities are out there to work globally or to be sponsored for visas here in the U.S. And we don't recruit. I'll just say like there isn't like U.S. citizens recruited by this person and international students by this one. Like if you went to the University of Washington and you were interested in software, whether you were a U.S. citizen or not, you'd come to me and we'd be working. I put you through our process that way. So you just look for the general positions.
We have another question. Are there opportunities for graduating seniors to work at Facebook and pursue a graduate degree at the same time?
So yes, you can pursue a graduate degree, but generally you'd have to kind of do what I did, like when I was doing my degree, which is you go to school at night and you probably need to do part-time. One of the things we don't have, which is frustrating to a lot of people, is we don't have a tuition reimbursement program. So there isn't you could definitely still, you kind of need to make sure that like your class schedules were built, that the school offered classes built around a part-time or a night school option, or nights or weekends. I can recall when I was going to Trachtenberg, I would have to be over down in Foggy Bottom. I have to go from Union Station to Foggy Bottom by 5:30, which is I have to leave a couple days a week a little early. And I worked out with my boss in advance and it was fine. Facebook's not a place that we want to tell you in the door at 9, out the door at 5 or anything like that. You can set your own schedules for sure. You need to work with your team, with your manager to kind of set that up. I think it's a question of just kind of what, your interest in a grad degree and what you're looking to do. I'll tell you, it was a lot of work. It was really exhausting to do what I did for those 3 years. I'm glad I did it, for sure. I think thankfully I had a supportive employer who I then promptly left as soon as I got my degree, because I was kind of ready to get away. But without his support and it would have been hard for me to get to class on time, and occasionally during finals or if I had a big project to leave early, things like that. He was really supportive, thankfully. And so if Facebook, we would be supportive of you doing that. You could work it out with your team for kind of your manager, how to set that schedule, but it's a lot of work. And, at the end of the day, still, you have a job to do. And so you need to make sure you're able to do that job. There isn't really an opportunity to do a part-time Facebook and then grad school that rule doesn't really exist. So you have to be working full time and looking to go to school at night/weekends.
Would you recommend volunteering and doing an internship over the summer? going into senior year of college?
Yeah, I mean, I think internships are great. It's just like it's a really good thing to see on a resume. I think whether it's some companies will look to try and hire you full time out of that. Like that's what we did at Deloitte. That's what we do at Facebook. I volunteered and did that congressional internship I did. That was unpaid. I think they've gotten better at that on the Hill now, and they are paying. I believe a lot of offices are now. I think this was a long time ago when I did it, but I think getting an internship is really a good way for you to do the work that you're interested in. So it's really twofold. Like one, first off, I think like it's good for your resume. You can have it on there. You can, get to grow your skills, learn about the industry and get to work on it. I think the second thing is you get to understand if it's something you want to do or not. I know plenty of students who have wrapped up an internship and they're really disappointed that they didn't enjoy it and it wasn't what they wanted to do. And then they're like, I don't know what's next. And my response to them would be, well, the good news is you figured out something you don't like and you're not going to get stuck doing it further. Like I think that's a great thing. Like you should be like, I get the concern about that and that's understandable. Like now what do I do next? But it's also a great feeling to know I don't want to do this. So I'm not going to be stuck doing it. I felt for a little while like that lobbying job, I was just kind of stuck and I didn't know what was next. And that's like not a great feeling to have. And so there is a great thing about realizing you don't like to do something. It's that you don't have to do it again. But I think that internship experience is really helpful. It lets you just kind of build up your skill set, get to work with other people, work in teams, get to own work and see things through. And those are all things that companies want to see because we're going to hand you something in our portfolio to work on. And so when we know you've done it in the past, that's just really helpful. So I think, yeah, for sure, I would try and look for an internship out there. Obviously, if it's paid, that's the best. If it's not paid, that's okay. Don't let if you can financially get through it, with an unpaid internship, then like, sure, that's okay. Try that. I mean, I think it's important to just to build up those skills. So.
How long is the normal Facebook recruiting process from initial interview to hire?
Yeah, that can it's roughly 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. For an internship, maybe, and if it's full-time roles, it's a little longer than that. But for most roles, typically, for internships, it tends to be there may be like a pre-screen with a recruiter. We don't do that in software. We just kind of move you right into the interview phase if we see the resume, like what we see on the resume. But then there's a round one interview. Usually takes like a week or two to schedule all that and get feedback on it from like start to finish. So like say 2 weeks. And then if you pass that, it's another like 2 weeks to get like the second interview. Most of our roles for interns are only 2 interviews. The big reason for that is we look most of the roles that you apply for, we hope to then be eligible for conversions. For full-time or for return offers. And so we look at like that 12-week internship as like it's an extended interview as well on top of that. So we don't really get too worried about 3, 4, 5 interviews for interns. You'll get to come and work with us for a 12-week period if you were to get the internship. And so yeah, the whole thing usually takes about, like I said, 4 weeks in there. So yeah.
What's the probability of getting an interview if you apply directly to the website, and does it help to have any sort of referrals?
Yeah, so I don't have statistics on like what percentage apply and then get the interview on there. I would apply. Like I go through all my resumes, and I'm not the anomaly of the recruiting team. So we go through all these. We need to like review them. There's compliance things with it, so we definitely get to look at them. Referrals are I think referrals are helpful always. And Facebook, what that means is it referral means your resume gets on the recruiter's eyes, and we have like immediately, and we have to respond within 4 days, I think it is, like when we see it. So it'll definitely means that it'll get an expedited review. Referrals don't guarantee interviews. It's not like at all places. I know at Deloitte, Deloitte only did referrals from like partners, so the higher the partners, principals, directors, like the highest level of folks, where the required referrals that like we'd have to interview you. If referrals came from like senior managers or below, we would just review them. But it does speed up the process a little bit. It can definitely guarantee that like your resume gets in front of the recruiter quicker in some instances, and in others it could mean we have to interview you. So I think it's like if you know people, that's great. And I think like that's totally a good avenue to pursue.
What kind of backgrounds are preferred for MBA candidates? This person says they've heard in the past that if you're not an engineer, then it is a bit difficult to enter the tech space, especially at Facebook.
So yeah, I think that is more due to, if you think about like total number of hires, again, it's like software engineering is the largest group we hire for, right? Because what do? We are coding, right? We are putting products out with software involved in it, right? And so when you take an engineering as a whole, on top of that within tech, it's a very large percentage of how many people we hire, right? So I think it's more about that than it is about like any specific skills. Like tech companies tend to have and it'll depend on what the tech is, right? So like Amazon, they have like tangible products they're working on, and you know they're going to need more business folks in what they're doing. Google is a little over the map. We have different all their different things than Alphabet, so there's some things are going to need more than others, right? Facebook is, you know, we do have Oculus and we do have Portal, but a lot of like our tangible product itself is through, you know, code, and so we don't have quite as many business hires that, you know, maybe compared to an Amazon would, or a Microsoft who's putting real products like, you know, the services and the software and all those things out there, right, that they need strategies for. We still need strategies, right? I mean, we still have ads, and I mean, we are an ads company. That's like the big thing. And then we have our business, you know, we have our, like I said, the portals and the Oculus that need to be, the AR, VR is a big space. And so we do hire MBAs for strategic, you know, to help with business strategy and capturing market share and clients and things like that, and how to position our, you know, our apps and other things. So, you know, I think again, what you're looking for, and more, I mean, you're going to look at more like strategic work there. There's less supply chain work in Facebook. There's a handful of supply chain roles that are out there, but it's not a ton. I mean, like I said, we do build our data centers, we do build our own hardware, and so we do have a need for some supply chain work, but it's not as much. So I think you're looking more at like strategic focused, you know, like, you know, the strategy side of your MBA. Sales and marketing, if you would kind of work through that as an MBA as a focus area, that's things where you'll see opportunities come up. MBAs also can be PMs and do product, you know, product management work in there, again, just from having some of that background. So we're looking for like kind of those things more so than, you know, when I was at Deloitte, like we really wanted, you know, a whole supply chain was great for us for our strategy and operations division, which they've renamed now. But that was really great to see because we were working with clients all over that had supply chain issues. So.
Do you have any knowledge about the Zuckerberg Foundation or any opportunities for involvement there?
No, it's completely separate. Yeah, that is a completely separate initiative, unfortunately. They do coach a handful of our recruiters and engineers from time to time, but it is not something that we are involved in. So I don't have any knowledge on that one.
Do new grads in a larger role, such as software engineering, have a say on what kind of team they're on at Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook specifically, actually, what our the way team matching works from a full-time perspective is every new engineer goes through what's called boot camp, and that is 6 to 8 weeks of orientation. And it's more about not first couple of days are just like everyone goes through company orientation, but then when you go through as an engineer, you learn more about the major teams at Facebook, the code base. You get to kind of diversify what you'd like to be in more. So you know, maybe you like mobile work or ML or machine learning or computer vision or stuff, and you get to, over that 6 to 8 weeks, you know, dig deeper and deeper into those teams and learn more about the work we're doing. And then at the end of it all, you can sit in that last week. We want you to sit in with a couple teams you're interested in, sit in some team meetings, you know, code with them, work with them, just get a feel for them, and then at that point, we want you to preference the team that you work on. It's not a guaranteed like 100% match. I mean, the team has to be cool to do. It's like dating in some ways, I guess. But you know, at the end of the day, almost everyone ends up with where they're, you know, kind of where they want to match to. Our interns go through. We don't have that kind of time. It's a 12-week internship, so we can't give you 8 weeks to explore. So we do a preference survey that we send all of our interns a few weeks before they start, and they can kind of give us their interest in what their alignments are, and then we match them to teams that way. So, yeah.
Can you tell us more about the rotational product manager role?
Yeah, so RPM, basically it's a 18-month rotation where you work on three different clients. It might be 3 and 2 years, or it's 18 months or 2 years. And you work with three different clients and help, build their PM strategy. And usually they're external clients. Occasionally they can be internal stuff we're working on too, but basically you're just involved in the building of that strategy. At the end of the rotational program, then you're evaluated for like just a full PM opportunity. That's how we like to do a lot of the hiring they do for PMs for recent graduates. So what I will say about our PM is two things. So one is like the pool of candidates they look at is broad. So like, don't worry if you are like, yeah, I don't have traditional PM experience. Like that's okay. Like they're looking for people with good client facing skills, customer service, who understand that. Someone 2 years ago was hired because um, they they really sold up their experience as a sandwich artist at Subway. I'm dead serious. And they talked about customer service and client facing and how to handle all that. And it helped. And that's like someone who got like the RPM role. So it's broad based. So don't worry if you're interested in it. You should definitely check it out. It is only for graduating seniors, and it is only open for like 2 weeks in August. So like right now it is closed. It will reopen again next August. So it'll be if you are a junior right now, or a first year master's student, and you're interested in that, next August, that's when you can apply. And keep in mind, like it's like 2 weeks it's open for. So I would just say like in early August, start Googling Facebook RPM. We have a whole landing page on our website for it. And you can find out when the application is going to post and when it's going to close. And so it's unfortunately like a very limited time that it's open. And it's already closed for this year. And so if you're a senior right now or a second year master's student, it's not open anymore. But if you are going to be graduating next year, 2021, well, all right. If you're going to graduate in June of 2022, June 2022, or even if you were to graduate in December of 21, you would still be eligible for it, but they won't consider everybody until next August.
So I think we have time for, 2 or 3 more questions. Can you tell us a little bit more about opportunities for media and strategic communications majors?
Yeah, that's a harder one. There are some comms roles that I'm sure that you could look at there. We do have like the Facebook, TV kind of the app, the video, the streaming app in there that people could be potential roles are for there. I think a lot of what you'd look at though in media comms would be like we have internal and external comms teams. I don't believe they have specific roles for university students, so you'd look at more of the they're just open for open positions. We tend to recruit two ways, right? We recruit industry and then university. And universities for anybody who's in school or up until 9 months after they graduate, and you would only look at those roles. The exception being kind of some of our HR roles, which we don't have like specific university positions for. So policy team, comms team, legal, those are things where you would just look at the regular openings that are there and just look at the position qualifications. Sometimes they have, I don't want to call them entry level roles because that's not what they are at Facebook, but roles for recent graduates. And so if you're looking at HR positions, and that is very general, but that is like recruiting and law and comms and everything in there, actual HR, like the HRB business partners, things like that, all get kind of grouped as an internal group, and we generally refer to it as HR, but that's where you would look for roles like that. Those would be limited, but there's definitely comms teams within Facebook for sure, both internal and external. And then there's some roles around, I think within some of the like entertainment division of like within Oculus and the Facebook Watch. The Watch is what it's called. So those are kind of the ones you could look at too.
Okay, so another question we have is, will the internships be taking place remotely for summer 2021? And when can we expect the final hiring decisions to be made?
Yeah, they are going to be virtual. We've just recently decided that about a week ago that we're going to move everything over to a virtual format for summer. This basically was done for a couple of reasons. Mark has been very clear that we are not going to be a leader in returning to the office. We're going to be very conservative about this. We're going to base it on federal, state, and local health guidelines before we do that. When we do come back in the office, as of now, they are planning on everybody like going like a slow build. So like 10%, 25%, 50% before we get to everybody. We are all allowed to work remote through July 2nd. And our summer internship, the last onboarding group, we have multiple start dates. The last one starts in June. And so it was not going to be feasible to have an on-site internship when all of our employees may choose to stay from home. And that's also assuming that, you know, again, they're going to look at things like vaccine rates and test positivity rates and hospital ICUs and things, rate availability and things like that. July, well, I said it all because July could be, you know, Google, I think is September. We were originally, I was actually one of the first to go. Seattle was the first to go in the US to come work from home. It's been almost 11 months now for us here. So we are, as much as we want to get back in the office, where it's going to be a slow build, they've kind of kept kicking it out. And so I wouldn't be shocked if they come back and say maybe September again at that point. So everything's going to be remote for summer for this year. And then in terms of when hiring decisions, everything's still kind of, everything's happening. And if you go to our Facebook Careers University page, you'll see the open internship and full-time roles that we have. And so anything that's open, it's just kind of open until we finish all hiring. So typically for internships, like for like software, we finish our summer hiring early March. And so we have 6 weeks or so until that. But, you know, positions are kind of filling up as we go along. And so I'd say, you know, if you haven't applied to a role yet, I would encourage you to apply. The sooner, the better, because as we kind of get closer, we actually have a March 12th deadline for all summer internships offers to be closed and done with. And that's because we then need time to team match. And if we are still having like housing for interns around the country in places if you're in those cities. So when you get housing worked out, there's a lot of logistics that go behind that. So by March 12th, we're done with all summer intern hiring across all pipelines for everybody that is not a PhD student. So sooner the better, I would say, to apply.
And then this is the last question. And then if you have any further questions, you can always send it to us at Career Services, and we can always get those answers for you. So I guess if you could you talk a little bit about the nature of a virtual internship program, and do you recommend being located in the area or time zone your internship where your internship is taking place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So within Facebook, we're trying to keep you within. So we try and keep you team wise within the time zone, but it's a little bit harder for like East Coast schools, because like where our engineering offices are here are New York, DC, and Boston, but the DC and Boston teams are very small, and the New York team is significantly smaller than Seattle and the Bay Area. So a lot of folks on the East Coast will still end up with managers on the West Coast. The good news is, again, we train kind of our managers to understand that like, hey, your intern might be will be up earlier than you. They'll finish work earlier than you. You are not expected to be working from like 9 a.m. to like 8 p.m. So you can stay with your time there. Your team may even say, hey, don't worry about the mornings. Do you mind working let's work 11 to 5:30 your time or something like that. Some teams who have West Coast managers will set up like an intake doc so that their teams, starting early can ask questions or they can leave some stuff before they go and their manager can answer it overnight East Coast time, so that when you're waking up the next morning before your team does, you have kind of answers to unblock you and get going on stuff like that. So that's kind of how I would not say you need to like move to where your internship is by any means. I would say like, be where you want to be where you feel safe. Companies who are all going remote are aware of this, and we'll make sure to set it up there to get you acclimated or set up with the team that works in there. For our interns, like we give everybody, we send you all of our interns laptops and phones, so they're onboarded. We have a virtual onboarding program. Everything's done virtually then. You can also get a portal sent to you as well to help with, connection, team meetings, things like that. Intern managers get training on all this and what virtual means. And it's more, we try and do increased check-ins with you and your manager. So you're always kind of aware of what's going on, try and do daily or every other day at worst. In like over video, you'll do just constant chatting with over Messenger. We have events that we do to help build, help you get to know other interns and get to know your team and get to know the company culture more. So there's events throughout the 12 weeks as well, so that you can do that. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. I think it is not the same as being in person. But we have a great programs team that spent a lot of effort trying to make it as good as possible. We've now done, we have fall interns, we have winter interns right now. So we're on our third remote cycle. We are planning again to go virtual for summer. So that'll be the fourth one. So we've had a lot of time and practice to work on this and incorporate suggestions from the interns and from the intern managers over the last couple ones and trying to fine tune it and keep making it as good as it can be. So we are definitely always evaluating that and working on it. And so we have start dates throughout May and June. So again, too, if you're with school, if for whatever reason you can't start till June, don't worry, we have that. I think they go through like June 26th. And so all sorts of timing. So, you don't need to worry about panicked about when you need to start. But we have a whole virtual program ready to go, and we've been rolling it out, and it's been, I think, as good as it can possibly be compared to an in-office experience, which ultimately is still the best. And so we can't wait to have that again.
Okay, so I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our panelist, Bill from Facebook, for talking and sharing his insights about Facebook, what it's like to work there, and also the recruiting process. And if there are any additional questions, please feel free to send them to us and we can forward them to Bill.
Happy to answer them. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. This is a year, I'm sure none of you expected to wrap up last year virtually. None of you expected to spend a whole fall and now winter and possibly a whole year virtual again. We feel for you all. This is a year plus like no other. We know how hard of a time it is for everybody. We know the challenges you're facing. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to reach out to people to try and get some insights on this. We're all in this together. So we really wish you the best at finishing up this virtual school. And again, if you have questions on careers or internships and stuff, feel free to either find me on LinkedIn or send it to Rachel, Steve. I'm happy to. They can email it over. I'm happy to reply with answers. Good luck to all of you as you're going through this. And I hope that everyone's staying safe and staying healthy and mentally getting through another Zoom session. We're all in it together.
Thank you. And do you have any closing advice for any of the students to share?
Yeah, I think for you all, just, apply to things, ask questions, come to events when they're happening. Zoom, you do a lot of it. I know you don't want to do another one, but when these company things happen, I would encourage you to try and do it just to get an insight, learn more. I would definitely tell you to come to these kind of things. It pays off. It's a good way to learn stuff. And then hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be back to in-person things and you can connect that way. But for now, I think don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be curious. You're not going to make people mad if you're asking recruiters or people who work within the company. If you're cold reaching out to things, the worst thing most times that'll happen is you might just not get an answer. You're told, hey, I don't know the answer to that, but no one's going to put you on a list of people not to contact or not to recruit. We're all trying to navigate this together. And so it's okay. You're not bugging anybody when you reach out to ask those questions right now. It's been really hard for us to share info with you and for you to learn and ask questions on us. And so no one's going to be upset if you, are trying to do that and ask questions and come to things and be, chatty. It's okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again, everyone, for coming today.
Thank you, everybody.